Hey everyone, and welcome to Business Boutique. I'm Christy Wright, and I'm so excited because today I get to share an awesome conversation with you. I recently sat down with my really good friend, Natalie Franke, and Natalie is awesome. Natalie is the co-founder of Rising Tide Society, and she is the head of community at Honeybook, and she has such a cool story of how she built an amazing community. Check this out. Natalie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored.
This is so fun. We were just talking even before we started recording of how funny it is with Instagram where you feel like you're friends with people and then you get to talk in real life. And so I'm so glad you're here. I've been a fan of yours for a while and followed you on Instagram and all the things. So I'm so excited. But for our listeners that may not know who you are and what you do, tell us a little bit about your business, your story, your family, all the things.
Absolutely. So I am a wedding photographer turned community builder who now leads this grassroots community of tens of thousands of creative entrepreneurs through the Rising Tide Society. And my journey is kind of a crazy one. I was running my own business. I was having a lot of success in my local market. And suddenly one day I realized just how lonely entrepreneurship can be. You know, I'd wake up, I'd hustle, I'm behind that computer, I'm getting my work done. And I was craving a sense of community. And, you know, I looked around for other communities and I couldn't find one that really exemplified to me, you know, the values of camaraderie and supporting one another and raising one another up. And so I set out to create my own. And basically what happened was I just started gathering creatives together in my hometown of Annapolis, Maryland. And within a couple of months, we saw this, you know, massive expansion thanks to a platform like Instagram and social media. And now we lead meetings in over 400 cities every month around the world in the spirit of community over competition. And I've just got this incredible community that has blossomed from that. So I now work as a community builder. My roots are in entrepreneurship, and I'm kind of in this quasi space between tech and community and entrepreneurship and sort of the emerging economy, which is what I refer to it as. Is the future is freelance and the future is small business.
I love it. It's amazing because we're such kindred spirits in this space. And what I love about your story is that you really did create something out of a need that you had. And so many of the best business ideas come from that. I have a need, so I'm gonna fill that need, I'm gonna solve that problem for myself, and oh, by the way, I'm gonna solve it for other people as well. So I love that. Now, I wanna go back to a little bit of your early story as you describe it, that you grew up in a family of nerds, your words, not mine, Natalie.
I did.
And scientists, and you say, the way you describe it is at some point you realized you were different and you were creative. And so talk to me about kind of that fork in the road or that realization of I don't have to follow this exact same path that I've seen all around me in my formative years. And just talk about the courage that took to do something different and what that was like.
Oh my goodness. So you alluded to it. I talk about it a little bit in interviews and on my website, but I was born into a family of nerds. My dad's a nuclear engineer and my mom's a nurse practitioner. My grandfather was one of the first aeronautical engineers at NASA and helped us to get into space. And so I was raised in this environment where education was emphasized, where science was celebrated. And yet I realized very early on that I was the one that doodled in the margins. You know, I was the student that, although I could ace my AP calculus, I also craved this, you know, creative outlet, and I desperately needed it. And so when I was about a freshman in college, and I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to study, what I wanted to pursue, I had a really honest conversation with my mom. And I had started photographing for fun on the side, and I was, you know, at this sort of turning point where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to major in, and I didn't want to pursue, you know, pre-med. I didn't want to pursue even econ, although I do love business, as you know. I wanted to study creativity and how we see the world and how we interpret, you know, the surroundings of our environment. And so I had this conversation with my mom where I said, you know what, Mom, what if I went out and became a photographer? What if I took this business and I went full time in it? And, you know, my mom being a single mom who, you know, really raised my sister and I on these values. And one of them is education is one thing no one can take away from you. She said that to me from the time I was very young. It was like, listen, once you've graduated from college, Nat, I don't care what you go do. I don't care if you become a photographer or a painter or an artist, but she said, go out and get your degree. So I made some very risky moves in that moment. I transferred schools. I transferred up to UPenn in Philadelphia, and I pursued a degree in visual studies. So I started studying, yes, the art history and creativity side of my brain, but also cognitive neuroscience and the psychology of seeing and how we see the world and how we interpret those photons that hit our retina. And in that space, I took that camera, and in order to pay for that degree, I started shooting weddings in Baltimore every weekend. And I would hop on that train from Philly. I would take it back to Baltimore. I would shoot my weddings. I would get on the 6 a.m. Amtrak back up to Philly to make my 9 a.m. class every single Monday morning. And I did that for 3 years while I finished out my degree, just like I had promised my mom. And every step of the way, I did my best to learn. I really treated those formative years of my business not as a time where I wanted to succeed, but as a time where I wanted to experiment, to innovate, and to fail. And I say that because I think sometimes it's easy in the Instagram world that we live in to look at people who have built businesses or who are on their second business or their third business or they're scaling in a unique way and just assume it was like this overnight success. They had it happen for them instantly. They don't think about, the daughter of a single mom hopping on that train, pinching pennies to pay off that degree, and along the way, navigating what it meant to build a business, learning about marketing, learning about sales, learning about customer service, learning about, how to grow and scale something that's service-based, which is, you work a lot with businesses that are both service-based and product-based. And providing them with so many resources that back when I was doing this, back in like 2006, 2007, there weren't those resources. You really had to learn by failing and learn by trying. And so I don't know where quite the confidence came from or the courage came from, but I do know that I was empowered by a lot of other women along the way. And I attribute where I am today, I think, to that mom that believed in me and said, you know what, if you want to do it, you go do it. Her only stipulation was the degree.
That's right.
She really just let me know that, I could, I was capable, I had the potential to do it. And it lit a fire under me to go out and to do my best, to try, to experiment. So I'm grateful for that.
I love even your perspective in those early years that your expectation of yourself was to learn. Like, that's so different than a lot of people setting out because they set out to succeed. I've got to succeed. I've got to succeed right now. I love that you just gave yourself the grace to say, I don't know it all, and that's okay because I'm going to learn. And because of that, because of those foundational years, you were able to be more successful and stick with it long term. What's really fun about your story, Natalie, is not only that realization of you're a creative, you're going to do something different than your family, but then you built your photography business, and then even that has evolved into what you're doing now with community. So talk to me about kind of the timeline here. When did that really start to turn into something else that you leaned into?
Absolutely. So when I graduated in 2012, that was the moment for me that was pretty defining because ultimately I made a choice right as I was handed that diploma that I wasn't going to pursue a 9-to-5 job, that I was going to take this business that I had been building and take it full time. And so from 2012 to about early 2015, that was where I ramped up that business to over 6 figures. By the time we even started thinking about creating a community, I was doing just under $250,000 in revenue on my own.
Wow.
As a wedding photographer, there's no associates on my team. It was me, and I had built a team of, second shooters and assistants to help me on the events when I would shoot them and travel with me when I did destination work. And so the business had become incredibly financially successful.
Right.
And as many entrepreneurs know, the isolation that sort of parallels that growth can be very daunting. And so those conversations around, how am I going to do this for the next 20, 30 years of my life? How am I going to build businesses, this one in particular, and maybe others, because obviously I have an entrepreneurial spirit, so my mind's always like leagues and leagues ahead.
What's next?
How am I going to do this alone? How am I going to do this when I feel isolated, exhausted, overwhelmed, when I'm focused on my competition rather than on my community? And that was right around early 2015. And, myself, I have 2 really great friends who are photographers locally as well. My husband was involved. We had a dinner. Honestly, it was a dinner conversation. We had a bottle of wine. We were relaxing and talking about the future. And we all had this understanding that in order for small business owners to thrive, they have to be in community with others. They have to have networks. They have to have strong support systems. It can be on their team, which is what most companies have, right? A thriving team where you have dynamic personalities that support one another, strengths and weaknesses that play into a larger ecosystem within the organization. But when you are that solopreneur, and in 2015, that's who I was that solopreneur, you don't have that. You are truly alone. And so we hosted that first meetup in the early spring of 2015, and immediately recognized when we started getting messages from friends of ours. We are in Annapolis at this point, but we're getting messages from Augusta, Georgia. We're getting messages from Monterey, California. We're getting messages from Connecticut of friends of ours we had met in the industry saying, I saw you just get together with a bunch of other creative entrepreneurs. How did you do that? And how can I do it too? I need that. I need to get out of my house. I need to, have an hour every month where I can invest in others and I can have that investment poured back into me. And so in June of 2015, that's when we launched Rising Tide. And it was a passion project. We were volunteering. It was not designed to be, a business or a profitable endeavor in any way. It was truly, truly created to be a community, just something grassroots. And again, we're now 3.5 years out from the launch of Rising Tide, and it's come a very long way. We're in a very different place now. The community ended up being acquired by a startup out in Silicon Valley called Honeybook, which is now my big family in the tech world.
Yeah.
And that gave us the funding, the fuel that we needed to actually invest back into the community and grow it and scale it, which was something, I had not been even accustomed to or aware of in the solopreneur space in terms of growth and different funnels for that. But that's sort of the timeline. And it's been a whirlwind going from shooting weddings on the weekend to now leading a team and leading other people in other countries now. I have just over 650 leaders that report into me. So it's been an unbelievable process. And I am grateful every single day that I just listen to that gut instinct of, here's a problem. Why hasn't anyone fixed it? Here's a situation. Why is nobody creating a solution? And recognizing that maybe I should stop complaining and maybe I should step up and be the one to try to fix it.
Yeah.
And I wish more people applied that logic to their daily lives. I can only imagine how many entrepreneurs would rise up if, as we recognize issues in our daily lives, whether you're a mom and you ask that question of, why has nobody invented something better than insert thing here? Or, business owner. That mindset, I think, for me was a shift as well. And then it's just been sort of a journey ever since.
It's amazing how many businesses are started because of that. And I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed, even on the Business Boutique podcast, that when I am digging into their story, they say, well, I just saw this problem and I thought someone should fix that. And then at some point they realize, oh, that someone is me. And it's just, it's really fun to see that, because it's not people even that necessarily start out to start a business, but they just can't get over this problem. They want to do something about it. They feel burdened by it. They feel compelled toward it. And that's where you find that work that has so much meaning in your life. It's not just a job, it's something that you are compelled to do because you care about that issue or that problem or that specific market and that type of thing. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you want to be part of the Business Boutique movement and the free Business Boutique Facebook group, well, all you got to do is click the link below.